Brian here, and welcome to today's video where I will be making the Highland Fling and the Rob Roy. So initially this was just going to be the Highland Fling, but when I looked into the history of the Highland Fling, it told me that it's basically a take on the Rob Roy. So I had a look at the Rob Roy and I figured I'd do these two together. Technically the Rob Roy is a take on the Manhattan, but that's not what we're doing. These two are Scotch based, so let's get into these. Okay, so the Rob Roy was initially created in 1894 at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City, and it was named after their premiere operetta Rob Roy, which that in its turn was named after the famous Scottish folk hero Rob Roy McGregor. So that's the origins of the Rob Roy. Okay, and finally the Highland Fling origins doesn't have a clear origins, sort of. It says that it just dates back to Prohibition times, but first appeared in a book called The Fine Art of Mixing Drinks by a guy named David Embury in 1948. So that's the origins of the Highland Fling as far as I could find out. Okay, so that's the history down. Now let's get into making the drink. So these drinks are made in a mixing glass. I have my mixing glass here. And they are usually served in either a martini glass or a coupe glass. So let's get a martini glass. Right, now let's get the ingredients. Okay, and here we have the ingredients. It's simple 3 ingredients. We have our Scotch whiskey, and for that we've got some Haig Club. And then you want your vermouth. For that we have some martini, and finally your angostura bitters. So let's start putting these together. Okay, so we're going to be starting with the whiskey. So we're going to want 1.5 shots of Scotch whiskey. There we go. Now we want 3/4 of a shot of vermouth. There you go. And finally, 2 to 3 splashes of angostura bitters, or dashes I should say. 1, 2, 3. Right, now we're just going to stir. So now we've stirred, we're just going to pour. Okay, so that does look a bit low on volume, but that is the recipe. Okay, and finally to garnish is simply just they drop 1 little cocktail cherry into the glass. And there we have it, the Rob Roy. Okay, so that is the Rob Roy. So as I said at the beginning, it's a little bit low on volume. If I was going to actually do this cocktail again, I would do a 2 to 1. Same ratios really as what we've got here, because we've got 1.5 to 3/4. So the ratios would stay the same. You just fill the glass a bit more, it'd be a bit nicer. And other than that, oh, maybe you'd have to add a little bit of angostura bitters to carry the balance. But other than that, I would just increase it a little bit more because, yeah, like I say, it's a bit low in the glass. But that is the Rob Roy. So it don't look too bad either, really. Actually, it does smell nice. So let's move this aside, and we will now do the Highland Fling, which is the one I was initially going to do before I found out about this. So let's get into that. Okay, so the Highland Fling is pretty much exactly the same cocktail, just with orange bitters instead of angostura bitters. Although the modern day take, which is what I'll do because it just makes it a little bit different, as well as adding the vermouth, I'll also add a dry vermouth. Now, I've seen the cocktail recipe for the Highland Fling will either nowadays contain a mixture of dry and sweet vermouth or sweet and Rosso. I've not seen a cocktail recipe where it has the dry and the Rosso. It's always either sweet dry or sweet Rosso. So I've got some dry. It's not martini, but it's okay, that'll do, from earlier cocktails. So let's get into making this one. Okay, so right, let's start adding the ingredients, and first we're going to add the Haig Club Scotch Whiskey, single malt, single grain. So we want 1.5 of that. Ooh. And then we want half of this. And half of this. In fact, I am going to add an extra half of whiskey because keep it at that 2-to-1. And finally, 3 dashes of angostura orange bitters. 1, 2, 3. Right, and finally stir. Now we're going to add some ice and stir. Okay, so we've got our ice in the glass, now we're just going to stir. And serve. Help if we got the glass. Oh, that was a little bit vigorous, my bad. And to garnish this, strangely, they simply say an olive or a triple olive, as I've done here. And that is it, the Highland Fling. Okay, and there we have it, the Rob Roy and the Highland Fling. So, as always, I've turned the backlight off, I'm just going to leave you the visuals for a little bit. So there we go. Okay, so we're back, we've got the light turned back on, and you didn't know this because I edit it, but while that was happening, the guy who was measuring for the windows shows up and I had to move everything back. But we're back and we got the cocktails. So I've removed the lights, so let's try these. So let's get rid of the garnish. And we're going to start with this one, the Rob Roy. That's alright. So I don't mind a Scotch on the rocks. So that is just kind of an elevated version. The Angostura bitters and the Scotch kind of brings it into the same familiarity as an old fashioned, but with the addition of the vermouth. So let's move on to this. So this is the Highland Fling, or the modern day version of the Highland Fling, because the original Highland Fling only said was the same as this, just with the orange bitters, but the modern day, as I have done here, has the dry vermouth as well. So let's try this. I think I prefer this one over that one. I think it's the orange bitters is what, because you can really get that little, it's like that, just like a hint of citrus note over the whole thing. It's like, it's not on the back, it's all there, but it's not heavy, it's like nice. Okay, and that is the end of this video, and that was the Rob Roy and the Highland Fling. And yeah, they're very nice. If you like your whiskey on the rocks, I would try these, because they're just elevated versions of your whiskey on the rocks. Really, this is more of a take on like an old fashioned, just with a bit of vermouth, whereas this one is completely different. Yeah, and I think I prefer this one. I said that earlier. Yeah, this is definitely the one I would pick out of the two. Just has extra layers to the cocktail on this one. Definitely. So that is the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and as always, hopefully I'll see you next time. Take care and goodbye.